What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my full card breakdown and predictions for UFC 294. We have Islam Makhachev going against Alexander Volkanovski 2.
I need all the wins, yeah. All that and all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we are back for another full card breakdown and prediction video. This week we are breaking down a 13-fight card in Abu Dhabi in UFC 294. A card that is pretty much stacked from top to bottom. A card that has had a lot of changes within the last 2 weeks. We had Paulo Costa pull out in steps Kamaru Usman on like 11 days notice. And then we have Charles Oliveira pull out in steps Alexander Volkanovski. These guys are going to go after it again, and really looking forward to both this main event and this co-main event, and really the card in general. Before we get into it, as always, it is a pay-per-view, so going to be bringing back the Significant Strike contest. To enter the contest, first, leave a like on the video, second, subscribe to the channel, and then third, comment down how many Significant Strikes you think that Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski are going to combine for. $25 to first. If there's a tie, the tiebreaker does go to the person that commented first. Big week for Prize Picks here. So Prize Picks is doing a promotion where all Steph Curry has to do is score 1 point, which, you know, I'm an MMA guy, not a basketball guy, but I think Steph Curry can go out there and get 1 point, and that does expire on the 24th. So be sure to get on that. I'll talk about some Prize Picks plays that I like this week that we compare that with. If you want to check that out, go to prizepicks.com, use promo code DFSBTN, and get yourself a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. It helps me, it helps you, and this week's the week to do it, guys. Steph Curry needs a point, and you get free money as well. So yeah, check it out. Use that promo code to get yourself some free money there. And then lastly, be sure to check out dfsbythenumbers.com. That's where you'll find all my other content that you do not see on YouTube. Multiple articles throughout the week, most notably my full card best bet article where I break down the entire card, get my prediction, the round, the method, the confidence rating, and the best bet for each and every fight. My stats, my final betting article where I post all my tracked bets, my Hail Mary parlays, prelim parlays, etc., and just a ton more on the website there. And yeah, looking to make it 5 winning events in a row for UFC 294. Was barely to just get by last week, but thanks to one Darren Elkins cashing a third round prop at plus 1800. Shout to Darren Elkins, you absolute legend. But yeah, back to 294. Looking forward to getting into it. Be sure to like, subscribe, be on the lookout for more content throughout the week. And I say we get into it here. All right, we're going to start with the first fight on the night, and they may or may not update this bout order. Kind of weird seeing this fight as the first fight of the night because it's a very good one, but I mean, that just goes to show you how stacked this card is. But we got Sharabutdin, Magomedov taking on Bruno Silva. We have Magomedov, 29 years old, 6'2", 11-0, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Bruno Silva, he's 34 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach, 23-9, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We see that Magomedov opened up minus 300. He's currently sitting at minus 265. Bruno Silva opened up plus 250. He's currently sitting at plus 215. So like I said, phenomenal matchup to kick off this card. I'm really looking forward to the debut of Magomedov. There's a lot of hype on this guy. I was really looking forward to seeing what this guy was all about. I've heard about him, but haven't really watched him in the past. But yeah, went and watched the majority of his fights, and I was very, very impressed. He's a very good striker, tons of power, has won all of his wins by knockout, besides one where he did have a decision, but this guy's an absolute finisher. Both these guys are. The thing with Bruno Silva is he came into the UFC rattling off 3 really good wins. A knockout win against Wellington Turman with that brutal ground and pound. He had that comeback win against Andrew Sanchez in the 3rd round, and then he knocked out the Beverly Hills Ninja Jordan Wright. You know, Bruno Silva was looking like an absolute killer. And then they feed him to Alex Pereira, and honestly, he lost that fight. But I think his stock kind of rose because he was able to eat every single shot from Pereira. You know, he got wobbled and hurt a couple times, but he was able to go the full 15 with Alex Pereira. But, you know, since that Pereira fight, Bruno Silva just looks off. And he took a ton of damage in that fight. I mean, eating 108 significant strikes from a guy like Alex Pereira, it's going to change you. And like I said, he got hurt a ton in that fight. He was able to survive to the final bell, but my goodness, he took a lot of damage. And since then, you know, the Gerald Meerschaert fight, that's a fight that you should go out there and knock out Meerschaert in the first round. He went out there, he looked sluggish, and quite frankly, he looked like he was drunk in there. He looked like he was partying out the night before. He showed up. He looked sluggish. He looked slow. Looked terrible in the Gerald Meerschaert fight. Getting outstruck by Gerald Meerschaert, and then what concerned me was getting dropped by Gerald Meerschaert. He got dropped by Gerald Meerschaert in the 3rd round, subbed shortly after. How the heck do you get dropped by Gerald Meerschaert and not by Alex Pereira? It just doesn't make a ton of sense. Then he bounces back against Brad Tavares, solid win there, and then he fights Brendan Allen. He gets hurt, he gets dropped again, and then Brendan Allen subs him, and that was Bruno Silva's 7th or 8th loss by submission. And Bruno Silva gets submitted all the time, and he's never been knocked out, that's what makes this fight so interesting, is the fact that Bruno Silva has 7 losses by submission, and Magomedov has 0 submissions on his record. But Silva has been hurt a ton in the UFC. He's been dropped a ton in the UFC. Jordan Wright hurt him, wobbled him in the 1st round. Alex Pereira made him wobble around the cage the entire time, pretty much. Like I said, Brendan Allen dropped him. Gerald Meerschaert dropped him. Although he's never been knocked out yet, I think that knockout loss is coming very soon, and I think that knockout loss comes here. I think Magomedov comes in here, gets his first win in the UFC, and does it by 2nd or 3rd round knockout against Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva's going to come out hot. He's looked off to me lately. He's looked very off to me. I think the durability is no longer there, and I think Magomedov's going to put him out here. I'll say 2nd round knockout for Magomedov in this one. Great way to kick off the card if they do keep this bout order. Moving on, we got Victoriya Dudakova going against Jinh Frey. We got Victoriya Dudakova, 24 years old, 5'5", with a 67-inch reach, 7-0, and obviously 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Jinh Frey, she's 38 years old, 5'3", with a 65-inch reach, 11-9 and 2-3 in her last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We see that Dudakova opened up -450. She's currently -600. Jinh Frey opened up +350. She's currently +425. And by the way, guys, this is probably one of the chalkiest weeks of the year. It feels like that Paris card a couple months back, the London card, where they're just trying to build a lot of people up, and this feels like one of those matchups. I mean, they're not bringing in Jinh Frey at 38 years old to build her up in this matchup. They want to get the young 24-year-old Victoriya Dudakova a win here, and I think that's what's going to happen. I've never been high on Jinh Frey. She came into the UFC late in her career, 34, 35 years old. She's somebody that doesn't have the best volume. She's somebody that is small for the weight class. I mean, she's fought at atomweight before. She's somebody that doesn't have the best cardio. And quite frankly, I think I've picked against Jinh Frey in pretty much every single one of her fights. And I went back to watch that Kay Hansen fight, where it was really not a ton going on in the first 2 rounds, but Kay Hansen was able to get her down in the 3rd round, and Kay Hansen tapped her out. Wasn't the best look. And I just haven't really been impressed. She has, I think 7 or 8 fights in the UFC, only 2 wins, just not the best record there. And like I said, she's now 38 years old, going against a much, much younger Dudakova, who I'm impressed with. Dudakova, I went back and watched some of her older fights when she was a little bit younger outside the UFC and Contender Series, and she looks really good. The question mark I have with her, though, is she looks really good, but against some very low-level competition. But since then, she came in to do the Contender Series against Maria Silva, I think as an underdog in that fight, went out there, won pretty cleanly, and then she went out there and got that TKO, the injury to Estela Nunez. So if she can go out there and beat Jinh Frey, it's not the best win in the world, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And yeah, I think she gets it done. Jinh Frey on paper has good takedown defense, but I think Dudakova should be able to take her down. On the feet, Dudakova's striking's not great, but Jinh Frey doesn't throw anything, so I feel like it's a pretty easy win for Dudakova here. She's -600 for a reason. Give me Victoriya Dudakova to win this fight by decision. Moving on, we got Nathaniel Wood going against Mohammad Naimov. We got Nathaniel Wood. He is 30 years old, 5'6", with a 69-inch reach, 19-5 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Mohammad Naimov, he is 29 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach, 9-2 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. Another big favorite here, Nathaniel Wood opened up -400. Currently -325. Mohammad Naimov opened up +330. Currently +275, which the odds kind of surprised me because Naimov did pull off a major upset in his last fight against Jamie Mullarkey. A lot of people were counting him out, including me. He was losing the entire fight up until he did knock out Mullarkey in the second round. And quite frankly, that's going to be his path here. I was not impressed with Naimov, to be honest, prior to him making his debut against Jamie Mullarkey. I didn't bet Jamie Mullarkey at minus 500 or nothing, but I thought Jamie Mullarkey probably goes out there and wins the fight. I remember Naimov from the Contender Series, where he went out there and lost to Colin England, which is definitely not the best look. I think Colin England, he has been cut, but I think he might have retired or something. But yeah, Colin England no longer in the UFC. That wasn't a great look. I do think he's improved since that Colin England fight. That fight was 2 or 3 years ago at this point. I do think he's getting better, but he has a very tough test ahead of him against Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood is probably going to be better everywhere. You know, Nathaniel Wood's a guy that his volume's incredible, landing over 6 significant strikes per minute. He has some solid power as well. Nathaniel Wood has very good wrestling, and I think he could use that wrestling in this matchup to mix in takedowns. I just feel like Nathaniel Wood's going to be getting ahead on the numbers, and I feel like he can also dictate where this fight takes place. But the one worry with Nathaniel Wood always is and always will be the chin, the durability. So that is giving Naimov, a puncher's chance. I think it would have to be a finish because I don't see him winning a decision here against Nathaniel Wood. Mohammad Naimov coming in here at his natural weight class here, 145. I'm curious to see how he does look on the scales. He took that Mullarkey fight at 155 on short notice. Nathaniel Wood's a guy that is very small for featherweight, and it's going to be Naimov who's going to be bigger here. So Naimov does have some opportunities here. I think Nathaniel Wood's going to make this look pretty easy as long as his chin holds up. Nathaniel Wood, he got dropped by Andre Fili. He got dropped by and finished by John Dodson. He's been finished a lot outside the UFC, so it's the durability that'd be my one concern on Nathaniel Wood here. But I think he wins this fight, probably 30-27, but as long as his chin holds up here. So we'll see if Naimov can pull it off again. I mean, a comeback knockout twice in a row, that'd be pretty sweet, but I got to go Nathaniel Wood here, and I got to take Nathaniel Wood to win by decision. All right, moving on, we got Anshul Jubli going against Mike Breeden. Got Jubli, 28 years old, 6 foot with a 69-inch reach, 7-0 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Mike Breeden, he is 34 years old, 5'10", with a 70-inch reach, 10-6 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. Believe it or not, Jubli opened up minus 900. He's currently minus 335. And Mike Breeden opened up plus 600. He's currently plus 260. And we talked about this card being a card where there's a lot of setup fights. We know what the UFC is doing. Is the UFC bringing Mike Breeden into Abu Dhabi to build him up here, get him back on track? No, they're probably not. Mike Breeden, I think he's 0-3 in the UFC. He came in on short notice against Alexander Hernandez. He got starched in a minute 25. No, he got starched in a minute 20. Then he goes out there and loses to Natan Levy. And then he goes out there and loses to Terrence McKinney in a minute. So he has 2 losses that come around a minute. And then even on the Contender Series a couple of years ago, he lost. So he's 0-4 between UFC and Contender Series here. But they're giving him one more shot. But like I said, I think they're building up Jubli, who is a road to UFC guy. A guy that, came in. I remember taping him for the road to UFC, and I was thoroughly impressed. I was. The one concern with Jubli is he's looking good, but kind of against 2. He's fought some very low level competition, but he made his debut against Jekka Seregi, who I thought was pretty good. Jekka Seregi is pretty dangerous, and he went in there. He looked good. He marched forward. He showed a ton of toughness, and he kind of broke Seregi in that matchup. Got him down a couple times, got on top, got into dominant positions, and finished him on the mat. I was very impressed with Anshul Jubli. And this is a guy in Jubli who's only 28 years old. He's going to be 6 years younger in this matchup. I think he is making significant improvements. And yeah, like I said, he's solid. His striking's decent, but his wrestling's very good. And once he does get you down, his control is very good as well. And he's starting to mix in that ground and pound also. So yeah, I think it's a good matchup for Jubli. Mike Breeden, on paper, 62% takedown defense. He was taken down 9 times by Natan Levy. Not the best look in the world. I think Jubli does get him down here. I think he does control him a little bit. I think he does break him a little bit. And I think he finishes Mike Breeden in the 3rd round. So give me Anshul Jubli to win this fight. I'll say it's a 3rd round TKO. And speaking of Anshul Jubli, on Prize Picks, they have the takedowns for Jubli set at 1.5. And I think he hits that more there. I'm taking the more for Jubli takedowns. I think he maybe gets 1 in the 1st, 1 in the 2nd, 1 in the 3rd, and then that's kind of the fight there. Like I said, we saw Natan Levy take down Mike Breeden like 9 times, so I think he can do it. If you want to tail that or fade it, be sure to check out prizepicks.com. Use promo code DFSBTN. Get yourself a 100% deposit bonus, and pair it up with that Curry. More than 0.5 points this week, free square, and yeah, I do like that Jubli more than 1.5 takedowns there. All right, next fight, we got Sedriques Dumas going against Abu Azaitar. We got Dumas, 28 years old, 6'2", with a 79-inch reach, 8-1. And 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Abu Azaitar, 37 years old, 5'9", with a 76-inch reach, 14-3-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We see that Dumas opened at -250, currently -240. Abu Azaitar opened up +210, currently +205. So I'll be honest, whenever I saw the odds on this fight initially, I laughed because it's just funny seeing Sedriques Dumas as a favorite against anybody in the UFC. But, the more I dug into this matchup, I mean, it's really hard to pick Abu Azaitar here. Abu Azaitar has had 2 fights in the last, 7 years. 2 fights in the last 7 years. One of those was his debut against Vitor Miranda, which was a terrible fight. Went to decision. He won it, but, not a great performance. And then he went out there against Marc-Andre Barrio, was semi-competitive early, but got broken and finished down the stretch. That fight was 2.5 years ago. I mean, what has Abu Azaitar, been up to? And I think he has had a suspension or 2, which makes sense. But 2 fights in the last 7 years. I mean, come on. You take a look at a guy like Sedriques Dumas. This guy wasn't even fighting, 7 years ago. This guy made his pro debut like 5 years ago, back in 2000 actually, no, he made his MMA debut 3 years ago in 2020. So Azaitar has been so inactive, and from what we've seen of him, I don't think he's that great. I think he has a really padded record. I think he has 1 round of cardio. I don't think he has good wrestling. He's probably going to try to wrestle here. I don't think he has good wrestling. He throws 1 shot at a time, big power, but, Sedriques Dumas is going to be so much bigger than this guy. He's going to have a 5-inch height advantage. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. He's the younger guy. He's the more active guy. So although, it's so hard to get to Sedriques Dumas as a favorite, I think I got to pick him here just due to the fact that I can't go and take Azaitar in this matchup. So give me Dumas to win this fight. He probably breaks Azaitar as the fight goes on, probably lands something in the 2nd or 3rd round. I wish there was a way to pick against both these guys, but if I had to make a pick, it's got to be Dumas. I cannot take Azaitar in this matchup after looking into it deeper. So give me Dumas to win this fight. I'll say Dumas wins this fight by 3rd round knockout. My goodness. Moving on. We got Javid Basharat going against Victor Henry. We got Basharat, 28 years old, 5'9", with a 69-inch reach, 14-0 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Victor Henry, 36 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach, 23-6 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. Another massive favorite on this card. Javid Basharat opened at -350, currently -600. Victor Henry opened up +285, currently +425. And Victor Henry, I guess, is a pretty hard guy to get a read on. His performances have been up and down, to say the least. He came in there against, I think it was Raoni Barcelos, and he was a massive underdog. I think Barcelos was like -500 something, -600 even. And he went out there and beat the crap out of Raoni Barcelos across 3 rounds. I mean, landing 181 significant strikes. And then he takes on 40-year-old Rafael Assunção and loses to Rafael Assunção somehow. His volume was, super low, only landed 55 significant strikes. And I think we can forgive him a little bit for that performance just because, Assunção does that to everybody he fights. All of Assunção fights are very low volume type close fight, so I guess I forgive him a little bit. And then he went out there against Tony Gravely and won that fight, doubled up the strike output of Tony Gravely, outlanded him 154-75. He did get taken down 3 times by Tony Gravely, but he was able to get back up each and every time for the most part, put a pace on him. Gravely started to tire out. So yeah, he's had some good performances, some bad performances, some in-between performances. It's just hard to get a read on Victor Henry. He's now 36 years old. I think he's good, though. I mean, I think he's getting pretty disrespected here, to be honest. Like, he can go out there, he can put up ridiculous numbers in the striking. He's a guy that is super tough. This guy has 6 losses, never been finished. He has really good takedown defense, much improved takedown defense, because you go and watch some of his fights outside the UFC, he is getting taken down, controlled a little bit early on. But yeah, he's a guy that has that cardio, the toughness, the heart, the willingness to go 15 hard, and that's some good attributes for a guy. But he's taken on Javid Basharat. Javid Basharat's a guy that is 8 years younger. He's leveling up each and every time we see him in the cage. I remember taping Javid Basharat on his Contender Series fight and thinking, he looks good, but he's fought like the worst competition I've ever seen. But since then, he's coming to the UFC, and he's showing that he does absolutely belong. Going out there, beating Trevin Jones the way he did, beating Tony Gravely the way he did, Mateus Mendonça the way he did. He's had some good wins, but if he's able to go out there and beat Victor Henry, it is going to be probably the best win of his career. So I think Victor Henry's getting disrespected a little bit here from the odds, but I think you got to go Basharat. It's really hard to see Victor Henry coming in here in Abu Dhabi, pulling off the upset. Even if this is a close fight, who's the decision going to go to? It's going to go to Javid Basharat, the undefeated guy who the UFC most definitely wants to push. I mean, there's no way they want Victor Henry to come in there and pull off the upset. They want to keep building up Javid. This guy's going to be a star. This guy has hype, and I think he's continuing to get better, and I think he wins this fight. I think it's a lot more competitive than the line does indicate, but I think the strike numbers should be close, but I think Javid can kind of dictate where this fight takes place, use the wrestling. He's going to be able to get fights down to the mat, control a little bit, rinse and repeat takedowns, and he should do enough to win a decision, but I have a feeling it's just going to be a little bit closer than these lines do indicate. It's going to be Basharat to win this fight. Basharat to win the fight by decision. All right, moving on, we got Trevor Peek going against Muhammad Yahya. Got Trevor Peek, 28 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach, 8-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Muhammad Yahya, we were not sure on his age. I have a number in my head, but I'm not 100% sure how old he is. I'm waiting for the UFC to confirm it. Usually the UFC puts it on their website like mid-fight week, so we'll find out soon, but this guy could be anywhere from 25 to 50, I don't know, but yeah, he's 5'9" with a 73-inch reach, 12-3 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. Very interesting odd movement for this fight. Trevor Peek opened up plus 330. He's now minus 160. Muhammad Yahya opened up minus 400. He's currently plus 140. And yeah, I went back and watched a good amount of footage of Yahya out there, and he has multiple 5-round fights that have went the full 25. So there's a lot of footage available out there of Yahya, and he's a guy that, I think he's okay. Just okay. He's not going to go out there and wow you, but his striking's decent. He has solid cardio. He has solid toughness. I think he's just a solid fighter. Trevor Peek is a guy that is, saying Trevor Peek is green is an understatement. He has a long way to go. He's a guy that he's somebody, I feel like he's somebody you'd see, when you're watching like those backyard brawls. He just throws technique out the window. He doesn't have much technique. He throws like standing hammer fist. He's very wild. Really, there's nobody in the UFC like Trevor Peek. And I think that's what makes Trevor Peek the most dangerous. How do you prepare for a guy like Trevor Peek? I mean, you don't. You don't prepare for a guy like Trevor Peek. This guy is a complete wild man. And like I said, there's no fighter in the UFC like him. And what I like most about Trevor Peek, not only is he fun to watch, he's probably one of the most exciting fighters on the roster, but he has a couple attributes that I think are going to carry him in his career. He has solid cardio. He's a guy that can put up like ridiculous numbers and not completely gas out. Obviously, he does slow down a little bit, but he can go the full 15. He's a guy that has probably some of the best toughness I've ever seen. I mean, he was eating just flush shots from Chepe Mariscal and just smiling at him after he got hit in the head. I mean, you're not finishing Trevor Peek without like a shovel or maybe a steel chair. And as far as I'm concerned, you're not allowed to bring either of those items into the cage. But you got Trevor Peek's next level durable. He's super, super tough, and he's a guy that's just going to fight for your money. So I see why money's been pouring in on Trevor Peek. I expect money to continue to pour in on Trevor Peek, and I think a lot of that has to do with, Trevor Peek, he's super green, but he's fun, he's exciting, and he has those key attributes. And Muhammad Yahya, he's just all right. He's okay. I don't like the level of competition for Yahya. Like, this will be probably the toughest test of his career, and this is going to be it's going to be something he's never seen before. He's never seen anything like Trevor Peek. And another thing I don't like about Yahya is he has 3 losses, all 3 of them come inside the distance, and that's the key here for me. You know, Muhammad Yahya has shown that he can be finished, whereas Trevor Peek has shown that he really can't be finished. So Yahya's been submitted twice, but I was able to watch one of the submission losses. It was a club and sub. He did get dropped in sub shortly after, and then I saw him get knocked out in about a minute. So yeah, it's a step up in competition from Muhammad Yahya. Quite frankly, it's a step down in competition for Trevor Peek, and I think Trevor Peek comes into Abu Dhabi and gets this win. But yeah, money's pouring in on Trevor Peek. I really struggle to lay, you know, a minus 160 on him just because he still does have a long way to go. But, you know, I think Peek does go out there, sets a pace that Yahya will not be able to keep up, and he's going to make this a brawl, a war, a car crash. And the only person, surviving a car crash in this fight, I think, is going to be Peek. So I think he comes out on the other side with his hand raised. Give me Trevor Peek to win this fight by first round knockout. And the other prize picks play I'm looking at is going to be Trevor Peek more than a 77.5 fantasy score. Really, if he wins the fight, he's going to pay that off. I personally think that if Peek does win, it's probably in the first or second round, and a first or second round finish will pay off that 77.5 fantasy score pretty easily there. If you want to pair that with the Steph Curry over or more 0.5 points, go for it. Use promo code DFSBTN, get yourself a 100% deposit bonus, and try to get on that Steph Curry more on the 0.5 points while it lasts there. All right. We'll move on to the next fight. We got Muhammad Mokaev going against Tim Elliott. We got Mokaev, 23 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach, 9-0 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Tim Elliott, 36 years old, 5'7", with a 66-inch reach, 19-12-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We see that Muhammad Mokaev opened up minus 500, currently minus 430. Tim Elliott opened up plus 375. He's currently plus 330. So some money is coming in on Tim Elliott this week. It's an intriguing fight here. So Muhammad Mokaev is coming back after a pretty terrible injury, and it shocked me when I went back to see how long ago his last fight was, and it was like 6 months ago, almost 7 months ago. So he's making a very quick return here is Muhammad Mokaev. This is a matchup where, I don't know, it's a tough test for Mokaev. It really is. If Mokaev's able to go out there and beat Tim Elliott, it's going to be, I'd say, his best win. I mean, Tim Elliott's a guy that's kind of fought the who's who in the division. Tim Elliott's been in the UFC for a very long time, and Tim Elliott, quite frankly, has been on a roll as of late. He's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. But then I went back and watched, and I looked at those fights, and Ryan Benoit, I think Ryan Benoit's cut. Jordan Espinoza, I'm pretty sure Jordan Espinoza's cut. He beat Tagir Ulanbekov, which was a really good win, but and then also beat Victor Altamirano, which is an okay win. But I'm not sure he's going to go out here and beat the much younger Mokaev. I feel like it's going to be competitive, though, up until it's not. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like both guys can go out here and get takedowns. I feel like the scrambler is going to be very fun in this fight. But I just feel like Mokaev is going to catch Tim Elliott in something at some point, because that's kind of what happens with Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott goes out there, he looks good, and then he makes a mistake and he gets subbed. I mean, Tim Elliott's been submitted so many times in his career. Tim Elliott got submitted by Joseph Benavidez. He got submitted by Ben Nguyen. He got submitted by Davison Figueiredo. He got submitted by Brandon Royval. Tim Elliott's been submitted so many times throughout his career. And Muhammad Mokaev is a very good grappler. 5 times Elliott has been submitted. So Elliott's getting up there in age. He's 36 years old. I think we are going to get a fight that does play out on the mat. And when it does, I feel like Mokaev is going to have multiple opportunities to find that submission. Mokaev got a submission win against Jafel Filho, black belt, Malcolm Gordon, black belt, and Cody Durden, which was a very good win as well. And I think he can go out there and submit Tim Elliott, who's been submitted a lot throughout his career. So give me Mokaev to win this fight. I'll take Mokaev to win this fight by 3rd round submission. All right, moving on, we got Nurmagomedov going against Muin Gafurov. We got Nurmagomedov, 31 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach, 17-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We got Muin Gafurov. He's 27 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach, 18-5 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. we'll take a look at the odds. Nurmagomedov, he opened up minus 225. He's currently sitting at minus 205. Muin Gafurov, he opened up at plus 190. He's currently sitting at plus 175. So I've kind of been a Muin Gafurov truther throughout his career. I thought this guy was very underrated. He went on to the Contender Series as a really big favorite and lost to Chad and Hellinger in a very close fight, but his chin let him down. He got dropped in that fight. Just wasn't the best performance against Chad and Hellinger. I mean, if you're legit, you shouldn't be losing to Chad and Hellinger, but the UFC gives him a shot against John Castaneda on short notice, and I was kind of expecting more. I know it was short notice, but I was expecting Gafurov to have a lot more success, maybe in the grappling department, getting takedowns, or B, even having a lot more success in the striking. And it was semi-competitive in the striking. I think Gafurov lost a point in that fight. Gafurov also got dropped in the fight. And that's kind of my concern with Gafurov at this point. Like, this guy's never been finished. 5 losses, all come by decision, but he is getting hurt a lot. I mean, he's very, very reckless in there. He's making a lot of mistakes in there, and his chin is not held up thus far between Contender Series and the UFC. And that worries me against a guy like Nurmagomedov, who doesn't throw a lot, but when he does throw and when he does land, he lands with vicious intent. Both these guys do. Both these guys have a ton of power. So the chin, the durability of Gafurov is starting to scare me a little bit. And, Nurmagomedov is a guy that I've never been too high on, but I've kind of been impressed with Nurmagomedov in the latter part of his career. What he did against Dudakova, Kakramanov in that second round, where he was able to get that guillotine choke. He also guillotined Cody Stamann, and that's going to be a weapon here, because Gafurov probably will try to get takedowns, and the guillotine will be there. The front chokes of Nurmagomedov will be there as well. And like I said, just those spinning attacks, those kicks to the body, to the head, I could see one of those landing as well and putting down Gafurov. So, although I do like Gafurov, I think I overrate him a little bit personally, just for my own personal opinion of him. I think the durability is worrying me a little bit. I think he's a little bit too reckless in there, and it's a tough matchup. I mean, I would like to see him come in here and fight, somebody not named Nurmagomedov, right? I mean, give him somebody a little bit easier, but they're kind of throwing him to the wolves here in this matchup. So I got to go Nurmagomedov here. I think he does catch him with something at some point. I think it's probably a club and sub. I think Nurmagomedov hurts him. Gafurov shoots in, and Nurmagomedov snatches up the neck. So give me Nurmagomedov to win this fight by second round submission. All right, moving on, we got Ikram Aliskerov going against Warlley Alves. We got Aliskerov, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 76-inch reach, 14-1, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Warlley Alves, 32 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach, 14-6, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. We take a look at the odds. Aliskerov opened up minus 300, currently minus 625, which I believe makes him the biggest favorite on the card as of now. And Warlley Alves opened up plus 3 or plus 250, currently plus 450 here. And yeah, when I saw this matchup was announced, I laughed a little bit, because I mean, this is not fair. I mean, Warlley Alves coming in here on short notice, up a weight class against Ikram Aliskerov, a guy that people are very, very hyped on. Warlley Alves, what I always worry about with him is the cardio, and him coming in here on short notice is not going to make, those worries any better. And like I said, he's coming up here a weight class. He's going to be undersized in this matchup. There's just a lot of reasons to like Ikram Aliskerov. Warlley Alves is probably going to come out there hot. He probably has some early success. It's just as the fight goes on, Alves seems to, I don't want to say always slow down, because, it's kind of weird with Alves. Some fights his cardio looks really solid, and some fights his cardio looks the opposite of that. It looks terrible. It's like there's no in-between with Warlley Alves, and I think we're going to get the Warlley Alves here on short notice, where when this fight does get extended, I do expect him to slow down, and I think Ikram's going to get him out of there late. So give me Ikram Aliskerov to win this fight. I'll take him to win this fight by second round knockout. Warlley Alves has been finished a couple times in the UFC, and the majority of those do come in the second round. He got knocked out by Jeremiah Wells. He got submitted by Randy Brown in the second round. Got knocked out by James Krause in the second round. So yeah, when he does lose, he loses in the second round. I kind of see it happening here as well. So give me Ikram Aliskerov to win this fight, and by second round knockout. All right, moving on. This is probably my least favorite fight on the card, believe it or not, and that's because it's a Magomed Ankalaev fight. But we'll talk about why. We got Ankalaev. He's 31 years old, 6'3", with a 75-inch reach, 18-1-1, and 4-0-1 in his last 5 fights. Johnny Walker, 31 years old, 6'6" with an 82-inch reach. He's 21-7 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. Ankalaev opened up -500, currently -350. Walker opened up +375, currently +275. So yeah, like I said, I don't think this fight's going to be fun. I really don't. Magomed Ankalaev fights, the majority of them just suck. And don't get me wrong, he's a great fighter, but I mean, the majority of his fights are just boring. And remember that 5-round Thiago Santos fight? I mean, this guy, he really shouldn't be main eventing, but I mean, he's so good. He's just so hard to watch. That 5-round fight against Jan Blachowicz was terrible. He had a terrible fight against Volkanovski. Don't even get me started on that Nikita Krylov fight. It was horrible. He's been in a lot of boring fights, and you can kind of say the same thing about Johnny Walker as of late. Johnny Walker had that 5-round fight against Thiago Santos where literally nobody did anything at all. He had that terrible Anthony Smith fight that went the full 15. So yeah, I kind of see this fight being kind of terrible. I can see both guys really worried about the power of either guy, which is understandable. But I also see a path here for Magomed Ankalaev, and that path is going to be the wrestling. He went out there, he took down Jan Blachowicz in the 4th and 5th round, and he looked great doing so. He looked great. The wrestling looked good. The control looked good. He took down Blachowicz, and Blachowicz did not get up pretty much the entire round, 4th and 5th. And then we also have seen Ankalaev go for takedowns against Nikita Krylov. He went for takedowns against Nikita Krylov, which is very interesting because Nikita Krylov did that exact same thing to Johnny Walker. That was a fight where Nikita Krylov took down Johnny Walker, and I think every single round was able to control him. And I think that's going to be the path here against Walker. Is Ankalaev going to want to stand there and strike with Johnny Walker? Maybe for a little bit, but I think the clear path to victory here for Ankalaev is going to be mixing in the takedowns, and we just saw how bad Johnny Walker looked on his back against Nikita Krylov a couple years ago. So he probably has made improvements since then, but I think if Ankalaev does get on top of him, he's going to have nothing to offer, and I think he can win minutes, make this fight as boring as possible, and run away with a decision here. I'm hoping Johnny Walker comes in here and makes this fight a lot more exciting than I'm expecting, but the Anthony Smith fight is not giving me... It's kind of scaring me away from thinking that. I mean, he went out there against Anthony Smith and just pretty much did nothing for 3 rounds. Won the fight easy, but just didn't do much in that fight. So I'm going to take Ankalaev to win this fight. I'm going to take Ankalaev to win this fight by decision. All right, now to the co-main event. Really looking forward to both this co-main event and this main event. We have Khamzat Chimaev going against Kamaru Usman. And by the way, I did do a breakdown going further in depth breaking this fight down that is already posted on the channel. But we got Khamzat Chimaev, 29 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, 12-0 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Kamaru Usman, 36 years old, 6 foot with a 76-inch reach, 20-3 and 5-0 in his last 5, or 3-2, my bad. 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. Chimaev opened up -300, currently -300. And then we have Kamaru Usman opening up +250, currently +250. So yeah, I'm happy that Kamaru Usman is stepping in here, saving the day after Paulo Costa pulled out. But I mean, this fight worries me for Kamaru Usman, and I have a lot of worries actually about Kamaru Usman in terms of his age. He's 36 years old right now. He's 7 years older than Khamzat Chimaev. I think we are seeing a decline. I know, there's been some people getting mad at me saying that, but I think we're clearly seeing a decline with Kamaru Usman. He's been battling injuries throughout the latter part of his career. Every time he fights, we have to hear about, how his knees are terrible, this and that. And none of that's getting better with age. I question the motivation at this point. This guy was on top of the world for the longest time, multiple title defenses. He's on his way to going out there and beating Leon Edwards in their second fight. Gets head kicked and knocked out in the 5th round with a minute to go. Where's his motivation at? He comes back against Leon Edwards a couple months later. Looks the worst he's ever had, ever. He looks terrible. Looks like he didn't even want to be there in a title fight. And loses to Leon Edwards easily, like it wasn't even competitive. And then apparently he's doing things on the side. He's acting. He's making money. Where is the motivation for Kamaru Usman? Does he care anymore? It didn't look like he cared in the Leon Edwards fight. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if he cares because he's accepting a fight against Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, if you care about your career, you do not accept a fight against Khamzat Chimaev, and you especially don't do it on short notice. I mean, it's not a good idea. Like, what has Usman been doing? Has he been training? Has he been acting? I don't know. What's he been up to? I'm not entirely sure. But what I am sure of is, Chimaev is a very tough fight to prepare for in general, but a very, very, very tough fight to prepare for on short notice. So I like Chimaev here a lot. Kamaru Usman, his takedown defense is very good, 97%. We've seen him taken down once. It was against Leon Edwards in their second fight, where Leon Edwards may have caught him by surprise a little bit. He took him down. Got right into mount. I mean, if Chimaev gets you down and gets into mount, you're getting finished shortly after. So, yeah, Usman coming up here a weight class on short notice. I got to go Chimaev here, and I got to go Chimaev to win this fight inside the distance as well. I think he takes down Kamaru Usman, and once he does, I think we're going to see a big difference in terms of the grappling, the ground game. Khamzat did fight Gilbert Burns, but with Gilbert Burns, he's a world champion BJJ black belt, whereas Kamaru Usman, we've never really seen him on his back besides that Edwards fight, and he didn't look good. So I like Chimaev here. I like him to style on Kamaru Usman and finish him in the first round by, could be TKO or sub, pick your poison. I'll say first round TKO for Khamzat Chimaev. A lot of people on the Usman side, it looks like, but I can't do it. Maybe a couple years ago on a full camp, yeah, sure. 36 years old, short notice, up a weight class, no, I can't do it. Give me Chimaev first round finish. All right, next we got the main event, Islam Makhachev going against Alexander Volkanovski 2. Be sure to comment down the significant strikes you think that are going to combine between the two for the contest there. But we got Islam Makhachev. He's 32 years old, 5'10", with a 70.5-inch reach, 24-1, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Alexander Volkanovski, 35 years old, 5'6", with a 71.5-inch reach, 26-2. And 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We see that Islam Makhachev opened up minus 200, currently minus 250. Volkanovski opened up plus 170, currently plus 210. These odds are a lot closer than their first fight was, and I think a lot of that has to do with that first fight being very competitive. It was one of those fights where it was competitive, but it was very, very clear who won the fight, in my opinion. I remember, that night, and a lot of people thought Volkanovski won the fight. And I went back and watched it, and I'm just shocked that people really think that. I mean, the fight was, like I said, it was competitive, but it wasn't really hard to score at all. I mean, Islam Makhachev clearly won the fight 48-47. That's what 2 of the judges had it, and one of the judges even had it at 49-46. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty clear win for Islam Makhachev there. And now we have, Alexander Volkanovski coming in here on short notice, which, again, it terrifies me. I heard an interview with Alexander Volkanovski talking about how he's coming off the couch, which I don't think is the case, but he said he's coming off the couch. Maybe it is actually, because he's coming off of like an elbow surgery or something, so maybe he is coming off the couch, but I don't like that. He's talking about how he has nothing to lose, which I disagree. I mean, you don't want to go down 0-2 against Islam. I'm just really questioning, not that he's stepping in, but I don't know, is it the best decision? I mean, Volkanovski stepping in. He's getting paid, so he's making money, but I don't know about this matchup. I'll be honest, I think I'm more confident in Islam this time around than I was the first time, just because of the circumstances surrounding the fight. Volkanovski just coming off of a surgery a couple months ago. Has Volkanovski been training much lately? I'm not sure. He was just hurt. Islam, I do think Islam's getting better. We're seeing, like, every time Islam steps in the cage, we're seeing major improvements, most notably with his striking. Volkanovski going to be undersized as always. I was shocked to see how much bigger Islam was in their first fight. I just think there's a lot of things going against Alexander Volkanovski in this matchup. So yeah, I got to go Makhachev to win here. What I noticed in their first fight was every time Islam got to Volkanovski's back and took his back, that was the round. It was a wrap. It was over. Volkanovski showed incredible submission defense, which was good, but we had no answer for it. So I think Islam's going to try to get to his back, try to take him down, drag him down, get on his back, and ride out some minutes there. And I think on the feet, I was actually shocked about how competitive it was, because it was very competitive on the feet. Islam actually hurt Volkanovski a couple times early in the fight, which was nice to see. But yeah, I think it's going to come down to the wrestling. I think it's going to come down to the short notice aspect of things for Volkanovski, and I think Islam goes out there and wins this fight pretty cleanly. I think he wins it by decision. I see a lot of people talking about a potential finish. I don't know. I mean, Volkanovski, he's so tough. I don't think Islam's subbing him. I think it would have to be by knockout. But I got to go Islam here. And I'm going to take Islam to win this fight by pretty dominant decision, I'd say here. So, yeah, those are the picks. Lots of favorites. I think it's probably the chalkiest card of the year. I don't think there's many live dogs. If you guys like any dogs in the comments, let me know. I'm not sure. I'm sure maybe a dog or two will come through. I'm just not sure who it's going to be. But yeah, guys, don't forget to comment down your significant strikes for the contest. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Be on the lookout for more content throughout the week. Betting breakdown video dropping Friday. Also going live Friday, I think a couple times. I think I'm going to go live Friday for best bet. And then I'm going to be going live Friday for the final thought. So a big week on this week for UFC 294. Best of luck with your bets, with your picks, and enjoy the fights. Finally, a very good card. We're out of the Apex, and really looking forward to this one. Best of luck, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.